All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into our second boot camp session. We kicked off our first boot camp session last week, having Rod Messick, our CEO, get us started. And then Tom Blefko and Dolly Bailey jumped in talking about mindset for the changing market and featured Jen Clemens and Craig Hartraff to share what they are doing for their daily routine, morning routine, and on a regular basis to really prepare for the market as it's starting to normalize. And that's really the goal for us, for you guys, is to start to think ahead. For those of you who have been in the business for several years, you've been in this market. So, we're leaning on you to share what you did to go above and beyond in terms of marketing your listings and servicing your sellers. And for those of you who have not yet been in a market like that, take some notes, get some ideas from this, and for us all to kind of hone our skills and dust some things off and brush up on it so that we can start to prepare and plan ahead as the market does continue to start to normalize. So I am going to hand this over to Stephanie Eckhart. Stephanie is a director of career development here with the company and does the Accelerate coaching and training for our new to business agents. And she is going to moderate the panel today.
Awesome, thank you. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much to the three panelists that agreed to be on with us today. You guys have always been a wonderful example of an agent who does take the seller's needs and those conversations that you're having with those sellers to the next level. So we really wanted to make sure that we could get you guys on here to talk a little bit about what you do that makes that such a successful thing in your businesses. So as Jen said, we are going back towards a normal market now. Things are starting to shift, and for some of our marketplaces hasn't completely made that shift yet, and things might still be hot, but we definitely want to look forward ahead to those days when things are going to be sitting on the market for a little bit longer, and we're going to need to have those conversations with the seller and change those approaches and the mindset and the way that they're entering the market. So this session is designed to have you guys share your extensive expertise in handling sellers and how you kind of get started with your relationship with them, how you handle difficult conversations, how we handle price changes, all those kinds of things. I did a little bit of research prior to you guys coming on here just to remind us of what days past used to be like. So I pulled days on market for your specific marketplaces just so we could quickly remind ourselves where we came from and where we are now. So in 2022, for September 2022, the York residential average days on market is 17. And in Andrew's marketplace down in Baltimore, it is 16. And in Tara's market in Berks County area is also 16. So average days on market about 16. If we rewind and go back in time to pre-COVID days, 2019, when the market was a little bit slower and a little bit more towards the normal, and I think we were just kind of starting to get into a hot seller market at the time, York's average residential days on market was 39 days. Do we remember that? And then same for Baltimore, it's about 39 days then, and for Berks County, 43. So that's quite a difference in where we are today versus where we are just a couple of years ago, and potentially where we're headed moving forward again. So just as that, with that reminder in mind for where we may be heading again, I wanted to have you guys talk about what do you do with your sellers? What is your process, your intake process, your follow-up process, your communication process? So I want to get started and start from the beginning. What do we do? What kind of conversations do you guys have when a seller calls you and says they want to list their home? Do you guys have a specific process that you use to intake those seller clients, or consultations, or anything that would qualify a seller first? I want to start with you, Polly.
When I get a call about someone who wants to list their house, I encourage them to go look at my Zillow reviews, because all my Zillow reviews are very constant, and I have a lot of Zillow reviews. And I encourage them to do that because I want them to trust me before I get there. If the appointment's not within a couple days, I'll send them a thank you note, handwritten thank you note. And the most important thing I do when I get there with an intake is I want to build trust. So the only way I can build trust is to build rapport. Because if I build rapport in the beginning and I build trust in the beginning, the process will be a lot easier, because when I'm telling them things that are happening with their home, they'll believe me. A lot of my things are probably going to sound really simple, but they're things that have made me successful with having my sellers not fight me through a listing, because I don't want them to fight. I want them to get to a settlement, which is what they want. I'm always early. I'm always 10 minutes early. I think if you're late, you just blew your opportunity for them to trust you. I look when I get to their house to build rapport. If I look at a picture, if they have a boat, if they have a car, because I immediately want to build rapport with them to get them to trust me and have confidence in me and confidence in themselves of who they chose. I take a gift with me. I usually take a little custom bag. I take really nice hand soap from Michael Designs, and I put I put two magic erasers in there, and you would think you gave them 2 lottery tickets. I mean, as soon as they get the magic erasers, they're crazy. And I'm taking them a gift and don't even know if I'm going to get the listing or not. I put a tablet that's customized to me because I hand them the tablet when we're walking around. I do sit down with them at the table and ask them why they love their home, because I want them to see that I care, that I'm compassionate, that I'm just not there to tell them how great I am, how many years I've been in the business, how many awards. I want them to know that I care. I also talk to them about what their why is. I can't help them if I don't know what their why is. So I spend more time when I get there talking about them and how I can build rapport with them so they can learn that they can trust me. When we're done having all those conversations, we do get up and walk around the house and I hand them a tablet. The whole purpose of me taking my tablet is for them to start writing things down that they need to do to get their house prepped for sale. And once we're done that, we come back, we do inside, outside. I talk to them about my staging abilities. I explain to them what staging means. It's not decorating, it's de-decorating. And when we get back to the table, we talk about the improvements again that they made. And I do show and tell with everybody. So my whole listing presentation is show and tell. I'll back up. When I get there, before I walk through their house, I go over my listing presentation, because you only get one opportunity to do that, because all they want to know is price after you've walked through the property. They don't want to know what your services are. And I do a show and tell with them with comps on my laptop. And we look at kitchens and we look at baths and we look at flooring, so they can see themselves where they really are going to be priced in the market. So I spend more time building rapport and going over my services to get them to trust me and for them to be confident in me. And that makes my whole procedure a lot easier.
Awesome. Thank you, Polly. That was very extensive. That's great. I love the tablet idea. Actually,
Yeah.
that's very interesting. Yeah, yeah. Tara, how about you? Do you do anything at the onset of that conversation with sellers?
Certainly. The one thing that I feel is very important is, what is the expectation of the seller? And with that, piggybacking on my expectations of them, such as Polly had said about decluttering or staging their property, things of that nature. And the why, or the emotional piece, I think is very important, because what is their motivation to sell? If you have a lesser motivated seller, we're going to have some tough conversation when it comes to pricing, especially coming off the market that we've just experienced with the increase in values. So those are some things that I do, as well as everything that Polly has done. It's very important that we have all the, the facts and the upgrades and updates throughout the house, but it's really important. And I think now, so more than ever, to make those personal connections, because we will have some challenging conversations and some hurdles, unlike we have in the past 2 years here.
Awesome. Thanks, Tara. How about you, Andrew? You have any additional thoughts there?
Well, I really like what I just heard, especially when Polly said she brings a gift to that initial one, because that's kind of enabling that law of reciprocity. That's really starting things off on the right foot. They almost feel like they owe you something, like you're giving them lottery tickets. That's genius. So, setting the expectations is really important. But anytime I'm going to meet with the seller, there's two, when you're preparing for that, you have to prepare in two ways. One's quantitatively and the other is qualitative. So quantitatively, you want to know everything there is to know about that home. You pull the tax record, you pull up previous listings. What did they buy it for? You can find out how much they owe on the home, what interest rate they had. Every piece of data that's available, you want to have it, even if you don't need it per se. It's in the folder and you're there. It just makes you look like you really have done some homework and research, because you have. But more importantly is preparing qualitatively. And how we do that, the first thing you want to do is you need to know some things about this property that you're going to be prepared to say. For example, you'd say, hey, do you guys realize how close you are to 83? And they'll say, yeah, we're about 8 minutes away. So you're actually 3 minutes away, 3.2 miles. People need to know that. That's some next level stuff. You have a best kept secret too. You say, this is one of your county's best kept secrets here. You prepare qualitatively with some of these lines that you can be prepared and ready to shoot out. So the other key thing is anytime I'm on my way to a listing, I tell myself this, say, I'm going to love this house and I'm going to love these people. Because that's subliminally, psychologically enabling this reciprocity, because people want to do business with people they like, and the people you like tend to like you, and people you don't like, guess what? They don't like you either. So you have to go in there saying, I'm going to love these people and I'm going to love their home. So loving the people is easy, and loving the home is, look, a lot of times it's a nice property. They're getting it ready to sell. It's a big decision. Easy to love it. You're probably going to make a commensurate fee. But even if it's a dump, you still love the property because, look, you don't have to live there. That's what you love about it. And you can still help them get out of the situation. So the preparation is very key, mindset wise, and then what you're bringing qualitatively. And then I always, before I go on a listing, I like to do what I call an upfront contract, which is I want to make sure I understand what they want to go over, not what I want to present. Because guess what? No one wants a listing presentation. They don't want it. And it's still over all of our documents forever. Alan Dalton's beat this into my head. It's probably one of the smartest things I've ever heard. It's not a listing presentation. What we're going on is a customized home marketing proposal. And there's 4 C's to that. You have to be confident, consultative, collaborative, and in control. Whoever's asking the questions is in control. So I don't want to just go on a diatribe about that, but setting the expectations is really key. And it's as simple as this. Hey, when I come over tomorrow at 2 o'clock, what types of things do you want to go over to make sure we make the best use of your time?
I love that.
If you want better answers, you have to ask better questions. What more respectful way to start the conversation is essentially you're saying, how do I give you what you want? And guess what? People will never argue with themselves. They won't argue with their own data. And if you let them set the agenda, that's consultative and it's collaborative. And you're confident enough to say, hey, you tell me what you want. So that's a good way to get the ball rolling.
That's awesome. I love that. I love the mindset aspect of that. And yeah, I think it's interesting to me how all 3 of you kind of in different ways take that same approach to how you begin those conversations with your sellers. So thank you. I appreciate that. That's wonderful. So then kind of moving on to the next step then, what does it look like for you guys once you've established that rapport and you've had that initial consultative appointment with the seller, and now you're starting to have that CMA conversation, the pricing conversation with them? One of the concerns that we may experience, or the issues we may experience moving forward, is the seller that's still living in the now market or the 3 months ago market, where the expectation is that, we're going to come out of the gate really hot, really high, and still get what we're asking for or more. We are starting to see a little bit of a slowdown of that. We're starting to see a lot of price reductions in various markets. So how are you guys planning to, or historically have had conversations with the seller to be more realistic about the current market? Let's start with Tara.
First of all, in our area, we haven't quite hit that wall yet. So Schuylkill County, we're not quite seeing those price reductions. It's just kind of starting over the past, I'd say, week or 2 that we're seeing some price decreases. So we do have the opportunity for these sellers, maybe to list on the high end, but I always, when I know that we are at the very top end of our home valuing, I typically set up a period where we have a price reduction. So if we don't have the type of reaction that we'd like within the first 2 weeks, then we already have set in place a scheduled price reduction. Typically when I go in, I'm giving them a broad range of where the home will sell. But if we are not seeing the activity levels in the first couple of weeks, I think it's very important to stay ahead of that. And it also reduces the stress on the home seller as well as the agent, because we've already established a plan that we're going to follow throughout the first 30 days.
Awesome, good, okay. Andrew, any thoughts from you on those first pricing conversations?
Well, first of all, when you get to the house, you always have to know what you're going to say. So obviously Polly's got gifts and stuff. She's really stacking the deck in her favor. So that's a pro tip.
Yeah, you don't want to go up against Polly, apparently.
Yeah, no, you don't. But the first thing I always say when I get to the house is simply this. Instead of saying, hey, do you want to show me around or this or that, whatever you say, the language is important. So the first thing I say when I get to the house, I say, hey, would you folks be willing to give me a tour of the property so we can determine what amenities of this home are going to give us a distinct marketing advantage? Versus, hey, will you show me around? Can we take a pre-marketing tour together so we can determine what features and amenities are going to give us the best marketing advantage? Okay, and then once you get, you do that, bond and rapport, when you get back down where you're actually presenting, this is where I always say, so guys, I brought some marketing ideas and some pricing recommendations. Which one would you like to start with? Consultative, collaborative, confident, and control. Let them choose. They think they're in control, which is great. You're in control. And if they go to pricing, you have to really this is so critically important to not take an overpriced listing and spend your time, money, energy, and effort and set them up to fight you later. So you have to explain how the pricing works. And what I would say is, look, I don't come in here and pretend to know what your house is worth before I've actually seen it. Now, we all know the comps. You guys probably looked at these as well, but I'm going to get back to you on the pricing. But all the pricing and the marketing comes down to three things: range, reach, and influence. Range is the internet. How are we going to get out there? Reach is, working within the real estate ecosystem, where here at Berkshire Hathaway Home Sale, we actually include every other brokerage in our marketing campaign. So we have range, we have reach, but the most important thing, that's far more important than those two things, is influence. My ability to influence the buyers and the buyer's agents on the value of this home. But before I can do that, I first need you to influence me on why someone would be fortunate to buy this home. So can we go over the top 3 or 4 things that you love about this house? And we call that home seller insights. And then you immediately get into being collaborative, and they're giving you everything you need to help you close the deal and market the home effectively. But pricing is a strategic exercise. So I think it's a mistake for anyone to go in there and say, yeah, here's the price. Anyone who gives a price doesn't understand this market, and they don't understand the right process. Because if you got a room of everyone at home sale and said, hey, were you shocked how high a price this home got 4 months ago? Every hand would go up. You want to know why? Because we don't know the price. We don't know the price. And personally, I don't like to gamble with the client's equity. And I'll tell them that. I don't know how high I can get this, but I understand the process. And we go through the process that is proven to work. We're closing 2 homes a day every day, and we have a process and a system that works. Now, of course, we have to have a strategic launching price, and we're going to have to co-create that. But I got to do some research first and get back to it. What's more important is let's understand how we're going to influence the market, influence the agents, how we're going to create compelling content and distribute it, and then we'll come back to the strategic launching price. So jumping right into pricing, I think, is a mistake, because that's what everybody else does. And if your competition's doing it, you shouldn't be doing it. Because everyone comes in here and says, hey, I brought a CMA. Here's the 5 active, 5 pending, 5 sold. That's worthless. They already know that stuff. You have to figure out how you are going to influence the price with your marketing. Because price is part of marketing. Marketing is not part of price. Homes don't sell because of price. Common misconception. They don't sell because of ineffective marketing. And there's 4 P's to marketing: product, price, promotion, and place. Price is only one part. You got to talk about it all. And if you can start educating your clients on that and making them understand that it's more about the process than the price, then you don't know how high the price can go. We're going to have a strategic launching price, but we're going to see if we want to stack the deck in your favor. I want to squeeze every penny I possibly can out of this, because at the end of the day, my only real goal is to have you say nice things about me on the internet. The best way to do that is to stuff money in your pocket. So I don't want to leave any money on the table with my CMA. So that would be my 2 cents on that.
No, I love that. Interesting. Awesome. Polly, do you have any thoughts?
Yes, I do agree with you, Andrew. I don't go out there and give them a price that day. I tell them that I wouldn't be doing a service for them if I gave them a price just seeing their property for an hour or so. I do show them some properties that maybe they bring up and talk about so they can see the pictures. But I try to figure out like what is the most important thing to them. I tell them that the reason we're out here is because I want it to be the least inconvenient to you. I want it to sell in the shortest amount of time for the highest price possible. And I ask them, what is the most important thing out of those 3 things to you? And 9 out of 10 of them will say all of them. They don't want people tracking through their house for 30 days. They don't want to be inconvenienced and not be home. And they want the highest possible price. And a lot of people, when I go out and I talk to them, I'm honest with them. A lot of the reason why our houses are being reduced is because agents are pricing houses like they already have 28 contracts on them. You can't go out there and price a property like they're already sitting there, because the reason we sold all those houses was at those prices was because of the competition we had with all those 28 contracts. So I try to educate them when they're seeing all these reductions. It's not that prices are dropping, it's that it was never priced properly in the first place. And I do tell them up front. And there's some people that don't like that, but I'm out there to get their house full, you know, not to tell them what they want to hear, because if I tell them what they want to hear, then I'm going to be sitting in a situation for 3 months, 6 months, 4 months where they don't like me and they're telling everybody that I'm not doing my job getting their house sold. So I address that right up front. And I really liked the things that you were saying, Andrew. I kind of ran out of paper, so I'm going to have to start writing on my hand, and I'll take that with me when I go out on my listing presentation. But I really want to find out what's important. I mean, you'd be surprised how many people don't want to be inconvenienced and they want to get it over with quickly. And then I talk about my stats and I tell them my properties that people list, the properties that I list, if they list at my suggested price in this market right now, they'll get 10% on an average higher, and they'll sell within 4 days. And what's, you know, and is that important to you? And it is important to most people, but I really need to take the time to try to explain to them why we're seeing these reductions right now. And I don't think it's because prices are dropping. I think because we're overpricing. And even in a great market, you can't afford to overprice the property. So that's.
Thanks, Polly. That was
Stephanie, I got one more thing to add on pricing.
Please do, go for it.
I learned this recently. I never give them one price too when I'm making that pricing recommendation. I would say, look, there's 3 pricing strategies that home sellers can be successful with, and this is going to be up to you. One is the retail pricing strategy, where we price it a little higher over what the data would suggest, which gives us a little negotiation room. People like that. The risk is it might take longer to sell, but we can go there. So I want to get every penny we can out of this. Or we can go with what we call the perceived market value going off the data, or we can go slightly under that, which would be called the like event pricing, where we want to have like it's an event, it's clearly a compelling value, and we might drive the price up. And then we give them those prices, I give them like some ranges pretty tight, you know, within 10, 15K for each strategy. And that given out, they're going to pick the price, and it's based on a strategy. Either way, your process, which is funny, I came up with this. I should share this with you guys. I was going over my listing presentation. I got coffee all over this. And this one, Alan Dalton came to town, and he kind of took me to school on this, because he listed 10,000 condos in one sitting, listed President Nixon's house, et cetera, et cetera. And this is what he signed off on. So I had him sign it. And this is ours together. And this is the process. I'm framing this because this is so good. This is our customized home marketing proposal. But the pricing strategy is part of it. And we're discussing pricing strategy. You also want to discuss your negotiation strategy, which I don't think many people do, but that's what they care about. How are you going to handle the negotiations? Which we are not going to get into today, but pricing, very key.
Andrew, I just would like to chime in and acknowledge that approach as really positioning yourself as the trusted advisor, where you're providing the options and advising them on how those options are going to impact their transaction. And it ties back to what we, learn from Ninja, where you provide, they decide. And it's positioning you as the advisor, not the one making the decision. And you're not then the one living with the decision made.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Between the 3 of them, they all take that approach of this is an educational guideline kind of thing, and then ultimately the seller decides where they want to position themselves. So I love to see all three of you are basically doing that.
Stephanie, can I say something?
Of course.
I also give them a price range too, like you do, Andrew. I always give them worst case market. The market crashes, this is what you're going to be. And I'm usually within 10 or 15,000 too. And it helps with getting a price reduction. It really, truly does. So anyway, just want to.
Any other thoughts on the subject at all? It's so interesting to me listening to you guys talking, and just like in your different languages and your different ways, you're all doing the exact same thing. So that's amazing.
Well, when they say, because they always say, hey, we haven't had much activity. We all do that call, and we'll probably talk about how we communicate with them. Hey, there hasn't been much going on. What's going on? Whenever someone says that they don't have a lot of activity, which is probably coming down the pipe and we're already seeing it, the best response to that is, you know what, you're right. This is completely unacceptable.
I love that.
This is completely unacceptable. We're going to have to change some things.
Mm-hmm.
It just
Yep.
opens the door for the price reduction. But you can only do that if you can show them, well, here, look, it looks good online. Here's what we're doing on YouTube. Here's what we're doing on Facebook. Here's what showing time suggests. Here's the market data. So this is unacceptable, guys. You're right. I'm glad we're having this conversation because you were on my list to call. This isn't working.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great segue into another concept too, is that what is your communication style like with the sellers? Once you guys have agreed on a price and you've got it listed, do you have a structured communication plan? What does that look like? What did it look like? Let's start with Andrew. You were on a roll. Let's go with you.
So for the communication, I always tell them, look, I want to communicate with you in whatever way is the most comfortable for you. And I used to do it like, hey, I'm going to do my follow-up calls on Monday or Friday or whatever. But I think it's better to give them the choice to say, how do you want me to update you on these things? Obviously, if we get an offer, there's something compelling we need to talk about, I'm just going to call you right away. But in terms of the cadence of communication, what's most convenient for you and your family in terms of giving you updates? And how frequently do you want them? So the mistake we make is we think we know what people want, and we don't. They, like you provide, they decide kind of thing. Let them pick, because then they'll never fight you on that. Why am I not hearing from you? You told me you only wanted me to call every other week, or if we had something compelling to talk about. Right now, there's no activity, which, by the way, is completely unacceptable. So I think you put yourself in a little bit of a box when you guarantee, like, I'm going to promise to call you every Friday at 3 p.m., which is fine. If they want that, that's fine. But you provide a menu of options, because a lot of times they won't know. And you never want to put the seller in a position where you're asking them something and they don't want to sound stupid and they don't know. So you say, hey, sometimes sellers want this, sometimes sellers want this, sometimes they want this, but this is totally up to you. I want to communicate with you in the modality and the frequency in which you would like, whether that's text, whether that's email, whether that's phone call, whether it's Zoom, etc. But BombBomb's a good tool, because I like to give my updates on BombBomb, because I can send a video with the data. And the beautiful thing is they don't get to talk back. So I can get all of my points out and come to a conclusion without having, and then you have a call after it if necessary.
I feel you on that, Andrew. That's my mode of communication too. There's no response. Terry, I want to go with you and see what your communication structure is like.
Sure. And to Andrew's point, I think that's the very first question is, how would you like to be communicated with and how often? And I set my plan around what the seller would like. But in addition to that, we have a lot of great tools through our company, seller reports that go via email that I think provide some really good statistics to help back up everything that we're speaking of. And that's an automatic thing. You set them up once. So even if they're not getting that personal communication from you, whether it be text, call, email, whatever it is, they're at least getting some communication showing what stats are happening. And that certainly helps those difficult conversations as well.
That's awesome. The seller report that we have here at Home Sale is remarkable. It's wonderful. It always has been one of my favorite modes of communication and backing up, what those conversations look like. How about you, Polly?
I do the same thing when I meet with them and we're doing the listing paperwork. I ask them if they want email, text, if they want me to call them. You'd be surprised how many people I run into that go, Polly, I don't want to hear from you. Call me when you have an offer. I don't want all that feedback. Let me know when give it to me once a month, because some people just don't want all that, and I'll ask them how many times they want their seller's report, because you can set up that to go out weekly or monthly or bi-weekly. So I ask them how they want to be communicated with, and I adjust my schedule to work with theirs.
Awesome. Good. Great. Well, thanks a lot, guys, for that. It's very helpful, I think, and it sounds like you guys are all kind of going the same way as asking the seller, you know, what they want and how often they want to hear from you. But I love what Andrew said about giving them a menu because, you know, you're right. A lot of times it's an open-ended question like that and they don't know how to answer it. So you can throw out their options. You know, some people want it every week and some people want it multiple times, you know, whatever they like. So we had touched a little bit on marketing activities and the things that you're actually doing to advertise and market the properties. What does that look like for you guys? What are you typically offering as part of your services? And then how are you communicating that or showing that to your seller and getting their buy-in? Let's start with Polly on that one.
One of the biggest things I do, and it doesn't matter what price range property it is, because I don't want people to go online and go, oh, Polly only gives a video for this property if it's over 900 and she won't do one for 250, because I want these people to call me. I want them to move from their mobile that's not $10,000 to their first real home that's 100,000. I want to work with them until I'm not here anymore, and I want to be their family realtor. So everybody gets the same photography package, and my photography package is huge. And the price range goes on how big the property is. You know, I just spent $960 on a $700,000 property. And that may seem like a lot of money, but this property sat up high on a hill. It did have some challenges. There wasn't a property that had sold for $700,000 in that area. And that photo package we did was so huge. And the sunsets were amazing over the golf course. And I just didn't do the one where they color in the windows, you know, with a yellow highlighter. I did a real twilight shot. And I really believe that's why we sold that house in a very quick time. I mean, it was sold in less than 7 days for full price. No, I mean, it was as smooth as could be, and the pictures were phenomenal. So I try to be consistent with everything I do. I don't have a different level if your property's 150 versus it's 960. Now, some properties I don't do twilights on because it just may not be the right property to do, but all of my properties get a handheld video. They don't get the slide up and down the pictures. And I make a huge investment in that because I think you get one shot when you go out there. One, you know, so it's really important. And it sounds like it's a lot of money, but over the years it will pay off because they're telling everybody about my marketing with my pictures and my videos, and it just makes a huge difference. So yeah, I do all my aerial pictures, and you know, like I sell a lot of real estate up at the lake. I have a really great video from up at the lake where it was in boats and drones, and so I really do put a lot of effort into that.
Awesome. Good. Tara, anything specific that you're doing for marketing?
Sure. I agree with Polly as far as all of our listings, whether it's a $50,000 or a $550,000 listing, we are always bringing a professional photographer in. Pictures are what bring the buyers. If they're bad pictures, they're not picking up the phone to call their agents. Depending on, you know, location, some certainly warrant drone video, things like that. But if we're selling an in-town listing, not so much, as well as some of the higher price homes with the more complicated floor plans, it's definitely important to have those floor plan features as part of the listing package. The one thing, and maybe it's doesn't sit right as far as photography and things. Our photographer also provides a professional social media package. It's point click. Again, that's a really important piece of all of our marketing. And I think that with the market that we're approaching back into, we're going to have to start doing broker open houses. I typically don't do traditional buyer open houses, but it's a very feel-good piece of the marketing to bring the local brokers in and the local agents to really see what the property is all about and offer any suggestions. It certainly helps as far as hurdles and pricing objections, things like that. If you have 5, 10, 20 of your peers saying, you know, maybe you need to restage this, or maybe you know, we need a price reduction at that point. So that is part of our marketing package for some of our higher valued homes. And that has been something that the sellers really appreciate, especially if we're getting past that 30-day mark.
Gotcha. Great. Thank you. Andrew, how about you?
Yeah, so this is something where we're really passionate about the marketing of listings, because it helps you sell the house, of course, but it also helps you get a lot more inbound leads, inquiries, and the ability to grow your business. And due to our marketing, we're generating about 1,000 leads a month, and primarily it comes from marketing listings. So kind of on the timeline of events, after you get their home seller insights, I always want to say, hey, now that we've went over some of the compelling features of why someone would want your home, is there anything you can point out that you think a buyer or buyer's agent might criticize that might detract from the value that we can strategize over? Really key you do that, because that's all going to be part of the marketing. But after you get through that home seller insight step, then we call it immense digital influence, is kind of the terminology I like to use. And we go over the pictures and things, but the key thing here is you have to be careful with this, because you have to be able to deliver. What I call it, I say, look, here's all what I call of course marketing. Of course, we're going to take pictures. Of course, there's going to be a sign. Of course, there's going to be brochures. Of course, we're going to post it on Facebook. But the real key is the next level marketing. We call it marketing like the year we live in. Is, God bless them, most agents don't know how to create compelling content. What does compelling mean? It means it doesn't suck, it's engaging, and it's optimized across the social media platforms. So we are so big on creating compelling content, which means we have, and we've been fortunate enough, we've had our own videographer, drone photographer for 5 years now. So we say, we're gonna come in, do it, we're gonna make this look like York County living on Bravo, HGTV. We're going to present this home in a compelling fashion where if you only looked at the pictures, you would miss some of these things. And we're going to point out all the things that they love about the house, all these key things, and make that into a 90-second piece of content that we're then, and that most people can't do that, ladies and gentlemen. They just can't create the compelling content. And we play a little game called Show Don't Tell. And I show them, see this? You're right with your phone. See this? We have 42,000 views on YouTube before we hit the market. Do you think that would help sell the home? Yes. So even if you can create the compelling content, you have to be able to distribute it properly. So what we really focus on is buyer profile targeted demographics. We know who the likely buyer is for this home. They're between the ages of 25 and 36, living in a 15-mile radius. Now we can target these people across every platform, including Google, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, before we go on the market. We can do this in the coming soon period. Our job is to get as much demand for this property before we start racking up days on the market, because unfortunately what a lot of agents do is they take nice pictures. Of course you're going to take, of course you take professional photos, but they're going to put it on the market and hope someone comes and sees it, and they're going to rely on the MLS to do the distribution for them, which is fine. But again, we don't like to gamble with that stuff. So we want to distribute compelling content to a demographic, and you show them 50,000 views on Facebook. And this is why it's key to have some of your greatest hits saved. You can say, boom, Facebook, boom, boom, boom. So yeah, this one we sold, and that happens often. Say, look, we found our own buyer off that. And honestly, the reason we do it is because it's going to help you sell your house for the top dollar. But then you tell them right there, subliminally trying to get the referrals and say, I want to list the next 5 homes in this neighborhood. And in order for me to do that, I'm going to have to overinvest in this particular house, because I want all the neighbors to say, oh my God, my agent would not do that. And they did not do that. So that's the key thing where we're going. What used to work is just not good enough. So with the home seller insights, with the digital influence, and we can talk a little bit about cooperative showing suggestions. These are all ideas I got from Alan Dalton 8 months ago. We're using them. It's all so relevant and deeply rooted in psychological principles, where you ask the seller, how, no one knows the home like you. Most agents have been trained on how to show properties, but no one's actually ever going to train them on how to show your property. How would you like someone to see this property? No one's asking these questions to the seller. Confident, collaborative, consultative, and in control. How do you think someone should see this? Well, I definitely want to start here, and the sunsets are perfect. So if they come here, I want to look out this window. You write all that stuff down. And you say, you know what? Before every single showing, hey, it's going to be part of our video. Anyone who's scheduled to see this home, we're going to send them the video first. We're going to give them a bullet pointed list of cooperative selling suggestions. Say, if you're going to show this property, And you know what? 50% of the agents, more probably 80%, they'll throw it away. But the good agents, they love this because they don't want to lose credibility with their buyer and open the door to the kitchen and it's actually the basement. And it's just ways to do things that your competition's not doing. So
Yeah, you brought up a lot of really incredible points that I just kind of want to touch back on too. This concept of showing and not telling, making it obvious and seen that, you know, this is what I did in the past and here's what I can do again for you. I love the idea that you have these conversations with the seller about like what you love about the property so that you can incorporate that into the video. Makes that would, I mean, if it was me as a seller, I would feel so engaged and involved in that process with you. That just really helps with that stickiness factor. You know, and the idea that they would listen to you if you needed to have harder conversations afterwards because they felt so involved in that process with you. So I love that you're doing that. Any other thoughts from the group on that?
well, the key is you have to be collaborative in this because otherwise it's you presenting and then you're like on a job interview and that's not what you want. It has to be collaborative. And then furthermore on the pictures, you'd say, hey, how important do you think it is for the first 5 or 6 photos that show up online to be really engaging? They're gonna say, that's important. So yeah, we think so too. Actually, the head of research and development for Berkshire Hathaway was CEO of Realtor.com. We're intimately aware of how important these first 5 photos are. So if you wouldn't mind, let's just walk around the house. What do you think? Even though you already know what they are, it's going to be exteriors, twilight, beautiful exteriors. Just engage them a little bit. What do you think? And then you're just being consultative and collaborative. Okay, yeah, I love this angle of the island. It's really not, I mean, if your photographer knows best and the pictures are going to look good, but if you just engage them, and it's not being disingenuous because you really do want to know. They might say something like, hey, you know what? At 7 p.m., if you come out of twilight, this angle right here from this window, we cannot get over this view. Well, guess what? You bring it up on the video and they love you because the next agent's not going to say anything like that. They're going to come in with their CMA. They're going to do this, they're going to do that. And then you're going to beat the daylights out.
Yep, I love that. It's awesome. Tara, Paul, you have any other additional things to add to that?
I'm an accredited stager. So when I walk through with my clients as they're making their list, I talk about the shots and I have them stand back and go, what do you see? Like, what do you see? Do you see 500 pillows and 50 throw blankets and the wall? I want them to look from the buyer's eye and see what it is. And I stage all my listings. Every one of my listings, I personally stage. Some people aren't happy with it, but they go with it because they need to. But when I'm there and we're talking about getting their house prepped for sale, I have them stand back and tell me, what is this buyer going to see when he looks at this kitchen and can't even see your beautiful granite countertop? Because you're telling me all about your countertops, but they can't see it because it's loaded with so much stuff. You know, so I try to help them have a vision of what their pictures are going to look like also. And that's one of the reasons I give them their tablet, because I want them to write down, I need to remove pillows. It means a lot more when they're making their notes than me telling them and them hearing it. So
it's important who says it, right?
it truly is. It truly is. So I like what you were, the sunset off this house, everything, the way they built this house was all deliberate. And when I walked through her house, all she kept saying was, we did this, this was deliberate, this was deliberate, this was deliberate. And it really taught me so much because the sunset, when they sold their house, they moved to a different state, but we had a really neat thing done for them, a painting, and it said the golden hour is my happiest hour. And it was the sunset, and it was just so cool. But I had to experience that with them and really be engaged in what their features were of the house. Like you said, Andrew, this is what the people are going to absolutely love. And I truly believe that's what sold that home.
Hey, there's 2 other things I want to add to that, because obviously, so Polly, we haven't met, but you're clearly just a super pro, because everything you just said is exactly what you want to do, asking the questions, getting them collaborating with you. But in terms of staging, this is a pro tip, because you don't want people to feel insulted if you recommend staging. What's wrong with my house? The line that might soften this for you would be like this: say, hey, I've been doing this for X amount of years, sold all these houses. You say, I've never met one house that couldn't benefit from staging. Because that means it's every house, vacant, new, beautiful, not beautiful. We've never met a house that couldn't benefit from staging. And then, oh, it's everybody. You're like everybody else. Instead of, what's wrong with me? That's one. And 2, you met the other thing, when you're going on that customized are when you're going on that pre-marketing evaluation tour together and they're pointing out all this stuff. That's when all this happens before you sit down and present, typically. And they're showing all this stuff, everything's deliberate. When they say that, this is so key, particularly if it's a husband and wife. And a lot of times it is, but even if it's just one person, anytime they point something out, you say, wow, did you do that with resale in mind? Or did you just do that to make the home imminently more livable? Question. And it's so complimentary. And then the wife will say, you say, whose idea was that? Say, oh, that was my idea. The wife says, that's my idea. You look at the husband and say, John, Susan made a good decision there. That's some psychological stuff. Or if the husband says, that's actually my idea to do the landscaping on the outside. Susan, John made a great choice there. So you always say, hey, did you do that with resale in mind? You find ways to compliment it without being too douchey. And that's that's the deepening of the bond and rapport as you go through this before you present how you market the house, how you price the house, the timeline of events that need to ensue. So that's just a couple of things I noticed there.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's like affirming the seller, each of them, and affirming their decision making.
Whose idea was that?
Yeah.
Wow, did you do that with resale in mind or just to make this home imminently more livable? That is so, I've said that every single time I've been on a listing, and I'm telling you, the rapport is thick. And one other thing before we talk about this is whenever you get their eyes lighting up, the fact that you understand, the fact that you do staging, the fact that you do crazy digital influence marketing, anytime you see their eyes light up, that's when you hit them with, hey guys, this is all included at our company standard 6%, and you move on. Because you don't
That's a great point.
You do not make that commission conversation. Let's talk about the commission now, because you're co-opting them to like, well, now they have to fight you because that's what you're supposed to do, right? It's a negotiation. You always slide that in there and move on. Oh, yeah, well, hey, staging, you know, we have never met a house that couldn't benefit from staging, but that's something we do at the Polly Lewis team. And it's just included in our company standard 6%. Okay, let's keep going.
Mm-hmm. It's great. So, start dripping it in early. Absolutely.
Just once. They won't even fight you if you do a good enough job. They're like, we need this guy or girl.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and I think that's really important is that all of these steps ahead of time with building the rapport and showing your value and creating the value is such that by the time you throw in some kind of commission drop, it's just absorbed without having any kind of fight, because by that point they're all in. They want you. They're all in.
Move along from that conversation. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. So I wanted to switch gears just a little bit because Tara had brought something up earlier, and Polly and Andrew has had as well with the open houses and the broker opens. So I haven't really for a long time had the opportunity to do any such thing because houses were selling so fast. So I do want to talk just a little bit as we're getting towards the end here. What do those open houses look like for you, whether it be broker, whether it be public, whether you guys even offer like a neighbor style open house, a pre-view, if you will? What does that look like? Do you do anything that's like special or different? I want to start with Tara on this one.
So like I said, I don't do traditional open houses, and we haven't had to do those in a very long time, as well as we haven't had to do the broker opens. But typically what we do is we make it a convenient midday event, bring in lunch from a local restaurant and just have an open house from 12 to 2. Again, one of the key pieces, everybody likes free stuff. So if you show up to the open house and you fill out the review sheet, and our review sheet basically says, is there anything that you can tell us about this property that may enhance showings, may enhance photos? How do you feel about the price? Are there any suggestions at all that you can make with regard to our current marketing or how we can improve a buyer's experience? And as long as they fill out that sheet, they're entered to win, whether it be a Sheets gift card or whatever the case may be. Now, we don't hand those right over to the sellers because some people are a little more brutal than others, but at least it gives us a guide to say, you know what, too many personal photos still. Agents are thinking we're about $50,000 off in price. And again, it's not just you as a salesperson, it is a group of your peers who are selling these properties as well.
Yep, that's a great point. I really loved the idea of having like a really open, honest, specific worksheet to hand all of the agents rather than just having, you know, a walkabout style broker open. I love that. Anything that you would like to share, Polly, on the open house subject or a broker open, anything?
I'll be honest with you, I just haven't done that many open houses recently. You know, when I list them, they sell within 3 days, so there just hasn't been an opportunity to do an open house. So I'm not saying I wouldn't do them again, but my hope is that they sell before I get to the open house. Even though it's
Well,
a
and I
great
want to
place
bring
get
up
leads.
I want to bring up something that you actually had said several expert panels ago about your apple pie trick.
Oh,
Do you remember?
oh, you mean where we bake the apple pie?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, when we were doing open houses, we were doing apple pies to make the house smell. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, I loved that idea.
You know, we always would try to have lemonade, you know, and try to make it really homey and welcoming. But you know, I just haven't had the opportunity. The big thing where we have open houses up at Lake Mead. So when we have an open house at the lake, it's a little tricky to do an open house at the lake. You got to do it 7 days in advance. You have to have somebody out the gate. So there's a little bit more than just shoving a sign in the yard. But we used to take them on boat rides. So we would meet them at the dock. I would meet them at the dock with my boat, or if I was doing the open house, I'd have somebody else take them out on boat rides, and they just absolutely loved it because there isn't any better way to show the lake than on a boat. So, but that was just a specific area, a neighborhood with a lake. You don't get every property that has a lake. But
I mean,
yeah.
you're really selling the experience
Oh,
that way.
oh, it's a lifestyle. You know, it's kind of like when you sell a condo, it's a lifestyle. I mean, lake living is a lifestyle. You know, all homes are a lifestyle. Do you want a rancher? Do you want 2 stories? What's important to you? Do you have to have an office? It's really about the way you live and how the house lives for you. So that's been a great experience of selling lifestyles up there. So I've been really fortunate to be able to sell homes at the lake and have open houses there. But I will tell you this, when I do have an open house, I'm not sitting there with the TV on. I'm not on my phone. You know, I'm sitting there watching for the person to come through the front door. I'm there for 2 hours and I look to see what type of car they're driving, what their tag is. You know, I'm originally from Middle River. So if someone pulls in with a Maryland tag, I'm like, oh, I'm from Maryland too, you know, trying to build rapport that way. And I look for that person. I have 2 hours to sit there. Now, don't get me wrong, when I'm not busy, I'll be working, but I'm always able to be at the door to greet them. They don't have to walk in and get me off the recliner when they come into open house. And I think that's really important.
You're very engaged and present. Yeah, it's awesome. Andrew, you have any thoughts?
Well, we love open houses down here. It's a huge part of our business. We're doing 6 or 7 every weekend. So, you know, we have 26 agents now. So open houses are huge for us. But I have to say, I went to York College of Pennsylvania. Tara, I forgot all about sheets. Now I'm hankering for some sheets. You don't have to.
It's the best, hands down.
What a great thing. We need Royal Farms, which what we have sucks. Sheets, schmeggles, and everything else. So that's a. And then Polly, I detected a little Baltimore in this, and that makes sense from Middle River. Say boat. Yeah, take them on a boat ride. Now, but anyway, so open house is critically important, and I think I don't understand how agents aren't fighting over doing these open houses every weekend. Like, this is the single best opportunity. There's no better use of your time than to turn this brand new listing into a store for yourself, where you're on stage, dressed, prepared, ready to go, and you better know exactly what you're going to say to every single one of these buyers or sellers or whoever walks in. And it's the same thing when you're setting expectations with anybody. Hey, what types of things would you like to go over today to make the best use of your time? Oh, we're just looking, whatever. But if you're prepared, you have all the market dynamics. Like if we're in Canton, where I am right now, in a 400K row home, you better have that full, it's not even a CMA, we call it like the result statistics. You say, well, look, here's everything between 350 and 450 in Canton. Right now, there's 8 on the market, 4 are pending, 16 have sold in the last 60 days. That's what you're going to need to know. That's what an appraiser is going to use. And you can see the days on market 7. List to sales price ratio is 101%. So maybe you can expect to pay 1% more. Has anyone went over this stuff with you? They always say no. Say, hey, well, I'm not sure if I'm gonna have time to do it today, but my office is up the street. It's critically important to understand the market dynamics and the velocity and the absorption rate to make sure you get a good deal. Everyone's gonna want that. And then you give them that and say, here. And then you flip it over and say, hey, if no one's went over that with you, they probably haven't went over to how to make sure you maximize your equity when going into a real property purchase, because it's a lot more than just the price. So the whole goal of these open houses is to get appointments with buyers and sellers who you want to make them your clients. So you have to give them a ton of data and explain these things to them. But in terms of what we do differently. And I don't think most agents do it because they don't take these open houses seriously. They're like, oh, ho hum, I guess I'll go sit here for 2 hours. No. Yeah, you better be early. You better be prepared. And by the way, if no one comes in for 2 hours, you're making follow-up calls. You go outside, you try to talk to some neighbors, whatever it takes. There's nothing better than to sit in an open house. And coming from the new home sales world, which I was in 13 years ago, that's all you do is open houses. The builders have more on the line financially than any one seller. They're sitting on tens and tens of millions of dollars. And half of them don't even cooperate with agents, as you guys probably know, like Ryan up there. They only do open houses. You want to know why? Because it works. Bring these people in to educate them, to sell them. I love the sheet, Tara, about getting some feedback, because you always want to communicate with your seller. How do they go? Which is tricky for us because, you know, say I have 30 listings and I got 10 different people doing open houses on my listings. You better have something to give to that seller or go over with the seller afterwards. But one thing we're doing differently now is we want to have a content-rich open house. This is key. And this is a little bit of a hustle, but if you're going to take your time on the weekend to do this, this is important. Content rich means you have things, pieces of content throughout the house that are going to be engaging to a potential buyer or seller. Berkshire Hathaway already has all these designed for you. I believe they're in Learn Center or Resource Center. This is on the national site, not Home Sales, but the Resource Center.
Right, the franchise.
Alan designed all these things back from when he ran the most profitable Better Homes and Gardens in the country. And there's guides like this. They're in there. You can put your face on, put your branding on it. Moving with pets, move, improve, relocate. The guide to moving with pets, moving with kids, upsizing, move, improve, relocate. There's like 20 of them. In their statistic, they're designed to attract all walks of life. So if someone's walking through the house and they're moving with kids, and you pull that out and they start looking at it, you got them. Oh yeah, this is our guy that helps people move with children. You have kids? So you want to have this content throughout that open house that's going to give you opportunities to have real conversations about them. So market data, content rich, and we don't have people sign in, we have them sign out. Big difference, because no one wants to be accosted when they walk in. It's like the same old thing. You walk into Best Buy, hey, you need help finding anything? No, Jesus, get away from me. I don't want to ask for anything. But if you deliver that market data properly, and you explain some of the compelling things going on in the marketplace, which by the way, most of the agents don't even know, quite frankly, they won't leave. They'll follow you around. You give it to them and you say, all right, let me know if you need anything. They'll just follow you. And then maybe if no one else is in the house, you go right into your buyer consultation, just whatever it takes. But I just think it's asinine for people not to be fighting over who gets to do these new, fresh listings. And it's home sale together. We're stronger together with 1,400 agents and all these offices. There's so much opportunity for everybody that I'd like to see. I don't know why all these listings aren't open every weekend. You know how many buyers we'd get? You wouldn't get Zillow force feeding these leads back to you at 35% referral fees, and you just went out there and worked on the weekend. And if you don't want to do it, then maybe it's not the right business. Sorry, I just get offended by people who don't want to do these open houses. So Polly,
Andrew's very passionate about the open house.
Hey, if the listings are selling like Polly's because she does such an amazing job up front and prices them right, well, that's one thing. But you know,
yeah.
If you're not doing open houses, you should never be allowed to complain about not having as much business as you want. That should be a rule at home sale.
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts, ladies, on that subject before we move on? Awesome. So as we're just kind of wrapping up here towards the end, and I think that for the most part, you guys have all had an opportunity to sort of reflect it already. But if you could just very concisely say, what would you say is the most impactful element to successful seller service?
I'll go ahead with that. I think setting the expectation with the seller and exceeding those expectations. You know, that is the number one thing. Communication. I wore a manager's hat, as you all know, at one point in time, and you know, the communication piece is extremely important because that is the number one complaint we would get as managers is we haven't heard from our agent. You know, the home has been shown 10 times and we don't know what's going on. So back to that communication piece, setting a timeline for communication and make sure that you follow up with your plan and go above and beyond.
Awesome.
People aren't hard. They just want to know what's going on throughout the process.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I think it's really important to build trust with them. And I think when you build trust with them, you have to be trustworthy. So you have to do the things that you say you're going to do. The first time you tell them you're going to do something and you don't do it, and it can be very, very small, they start to not trust you as much as they should. And the communication's important. It's extremely important. Educating them on what's happening in the marketplace. If you're just listing a property and not paying attention to why it's not selling, they'll going to look on Zillow and everywhere they can to start finding out what you're not doing or what's wrong or why does this say 3 baths when I really have 2.5. And if you stay in communication with them, it'll go so much smoother. And being upfront with them, I'm not afraid to be upfront with somebody. You know, if somebody wants this ridiculous price, I have no problem telling them that we're not going to get it. And I think being honest and straightforward and building trust is the most important key.
That's an
in being
excellent
successful. And having a listing mindset. You know, you got to decide if your sellers are they a seller or are they a buyer? You know, some people think they're buyers and they're really sellers if they can't buy without selling their home. So
that's true.
really important to determine, to help them when they're looking or thinking about buying or selling.
I really loved what you just said there about like the second that you don't do what you said you were going to do, it breaks away at the trust level. So yeah, I love that. Andrew, thoughts from you?
It's funny. You remind me of what I saw Mark Stark speak in Omaha at Explosion 2 years ago. If you're not familiar with him, he ran Arizona, California, Nevada properties, just exited Home Services of America, bought him for some crazy number. He said, don't market the mandatories. Of course you're going to communicate. Of course you're going to be on time. Of course you're not going to do something to erode trust. If they thought that you were going to lie to them, not call them back and not communicate, do you think they'd ever talk to you in the first place? Now, that being said, you still, like, I love what they both said, because sometimes people don't do it. And the managers know, like, but that's just a kind of a crazy thing. Like, what do you mean you took a listing and you never called them again? That happens all the time. It's the #1 complaint from NAR. But we're better than that here. So I think we got to go above and beyond the mandatories. And the key thing here is this: you have to have a process and a system for selling homes. And you have to be very clear on what that is. And if you don't have clarity around the value you bring, how would anyone else have clarity on it? So it's more of an internal thing. What is your system? Do you have a process that's specifically laid out on a timeline? You know exactly what happens by what date, why that's happening, and you can clearly articulate it to the seller in a very simple, easy to grasp explanation. And if you don't have that, you're just not going to be able to take listings at scale, which I think we all want to do. And there's 3 parts to it. One is you have to market like the year we live in: pictures, content, distribution, using coming soon, leveraging the MLS. Most people don't know, like, you can put the listing as coming soon in Zillow. It won't automatically go to Zillow. Don't you think you'd want all that Zillow traffic to come to you? That's a little extra step, and agents don't do it. So that's one piece. Then you have to explain, hey, we're really good at marketing. We're really good at negotiating. That's negotiating the terms, the price, closing costs, contingencies, timeframes. It's imperative that you let the sellers know this. I know how to market. We know how to negotiate. And finally, from contract to close, we know how to solve problems. You know, after selling $1 billion of real estate over the last 12 years, we haven't came across many things we haven't seen before. And we have solutions for problems that don't come up. So before you hire somebody, I just encourage you to make sure they're an extremely skilled marketer in 2022. They really are staunch in their negotiation abilities, and they can solve problems as they come up, because they probably will, but we can solve them. So,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's great. That's great. And you all kind of tied together with those same thoughts. Those elements were all the same. I love that. Looks like Corinne had a question in the chat box. If you guys wouldn't mind just taking a couple extra minutes to address that question. She wants to know, how long does it take you to prepare for the listing, and how long are you at the house for the initial consultation?
Yeah, you know what? I don't think it should take that long to prepare, because all you have to do is get all that quantitative data. But if you should know your marketing proposal language inside and out. So if someone said, I want a listing appointment right now, that's no problem. You can go, you can look at HomeSnap on your way over there and be good enough. So, but you still want to prep. So maybe that takes 15 minutes. And then you're there for as long as they want you to be there. Because you know what? A lot of people will talk themselves out of a sale. When you ask them, hey, what types of things do you want to go over in order to make the best use of their time, and say, hey, we just want to know what you're going to do, how much you charge, and what do you do to get it sold. Say, okay, you want to do over that right now? Give them exactly what they want. Bang, 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 bang. Because if they're a high D or whatever, that's what they want. You might be talking to an executive. Get in, get out.
Mm-hmm. That's a
Sometimes
great
it
point.
might take 2 hours.
Looks like Polly fully agrees with that.
Before I jump off, I'm putting a YouTube link in this chat. I did a presentation on that customized home marketing proposal at Explosion like a couple months ago. It goes through everything that we do. So if you're interested in it, it's like 50 minutes. That's there. And
Love that. Thank you. Yeah. So everybody on, if you click that in the chat box, it will open up in a separate tab and you can save that for when we wrap up here. Any other thoughts on that, Polly?
I have 15 listing packets ready to go at any time with everything about the company, everything about me. I have pods, I have countdown to moving, I have staging. All I got to do is grab it and go. You know, I do have to pull things up like Andrew said, but I can prepare pretty quickly. But I do agree with Andrew. I gauge who the person is. I have a client who calls me his family realtor. When he calls me up and wants me out there, he just wants information. He wants me to tell him what he needs to know. He wants the shortest appointment possible, and he doesn't want to hear from me until I have a contract. So everybody's different. So I just gauge how long I'm there based on what their needs are.
Awesome. Anything from you, Tara, on that?
No, I do the same as Polly. We have all of our pre-printed listing packets. So really for me, it's more about gathering a little information about the home and just being prepared when I get there. And to answer the question about how long are you there, typically no more than an hour, unless it's a very, very luxury home with a lot of upgraded features. And depends on how long they want to talk. But it's a very fine line between talking about yourself and your services versus asking the proper questions and being a good listener.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I love that. Yeah. One more question. Do you get contracts signed at the listing appointment?
I personally do not. I'm old school. I do a two-step process. I do not share any pricing information at the initial appointment. So I come back, I do my homework, and within 24 hours, there is a complete CMA provided to the customer, and we set up a follow-up phone call conversation about strategic pricing.
Great. Okay. All right. Unless there are any other thoughts, I just wanted to thank you guys so much for taking time out today to have those conversations with us. I know we could probably go on for hours and hours about what we do and all the marketing and how we talk to our sellers. So I love that you guys shared what you could share in the hour that we had together. I so much appreciate it. And for all the attendees that were here, thank you for taking time today to listen to these awesome agents on what they're doing with their seller experiences. Have a wonderful afternoon, guys. Thanks again. Loved having you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Steph, for hosting. Thank you, Tara, Polly, and Andrew. We did record this, so I will make sure that recording gets sent out. And please make sure you tune in next Tuesday for Marketing Your Listings and Seller Communications with Cheryl Yerger and Mia Anderson. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.